Good hello, a quick request one today from one of the more recent episodes of Rick and Morty. For a show that seems to be mostly rig-based, is this bit done by hand, frame by frame? And well, no, not quite. It's both. I think it's quite rare in this show that actual tweens would get seen. Despite there being a limb hierarchy, each frame does seem to be very deliberately placed. Drawing your attention to each individual component, say the head, the chest, upper or lower arm, all of those will maintain the same hierarchy. So that means each piece will be connected to the thing above it. Hand to the lower arm, to the upper arm, to the shoulder. Moving the upper arm, for example, will move the lower arm and subsequently the hand. Each one of those pieces can independently have its own frame-by-frame animation. Each piece being redrawn to rot away into bone, but because that's independent of the way it's linked up, you can make the arm bend and twist in any way you want, and it won't mess up the pacing of the rotting parts. You don't have to draw it all flat. If we look really closely at some individual frames, we can pinpoint some moments where the same drawing remains, just pivoted or shifted slightly, without continuing to decompose. Look closely at this upper arm here, as it starts to dissolve and turn into bone. That part's being redrawn, but you can see it being laid over the chest, how it's sort of like shifting around a little bit. So the rig structure is indeed staying intact. Same for the chest, as you see that dissolve, and most clearly seen in any joint. Of course, it will all need to become completely frame by frame at some point. It's a little bit difficult to tell exactly where. Across these two frames is when the skeleton has almost completely deteriorated. It's changed color, but it does still have a lot of detail and outlines. The next frame, however, is when everything becomes uniform and it turns into a cloud, based upon the shapes in the previous ones. So I reckon it's at this point that it switched to being completely frame by frame and all one layer. The green energy which surrounds him keeps its own layer, though it dissipates just a little bit sooner. Weirdly enough, for these small U-shaped particles falling down, they don't appear to have any source of origin. I guess it's just there to add a bit of weight. There also must be a transition at some stage for the portal. It's got its set effect, which they use every time, and has a bit of 3D going on as well, so it's not a Toon Boom thing. So at what point does it change to being hand-drawn, to dissolve? You can see in this frame, the transition is handled by having the gooey parts which are attached to Rick, they're drawn. You can even make out the shapes of the brush tool there. Likewise, there is a mask that starts to appear over the portal itself, removing parts of it. By the time we get to this frame, it isn't just being masked away, but a brush is being used to mask portions back in, as there's now, only about 50% of it remaining. By this frame is when it does make the complete transition into a hand-drawn thing, using the same colors and brush textures as before. That's all you have to do, just draw less and less of it each time, keeping the rotation. One nice touch is in its final frames, the final pieces of goo, rather than just being drawn down into nothing, they also gain a bit of weight and fall towards the floor. Very cool effect. Nicely done. Thanks for stopping by for a nice quick between the frames. If you haven't seen any of the others, there's some much longer and more in-depth ones for all sorts of stuff. Give them a look if you haven't, and take care. Bye.